I'm going to tell you something that's going to sound like a lie, but it's not. It's the kind of truth that doesn't just change how you think, it shakes your soul. Imagine waking up one day, not as someone new, but as someone who finally sees through the illusion. You're not different because you want to be. You're different because you are. You were born with the weight of ancient wisdom in your bones and the silence of centuries echoing in your breath. But when you're a dark chosen one, the world reacts to you like an immune system attacking an invader. You don't even have to speak. Just your presence, your gaze, your calm, your silence unsettles people. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the energy shift instantly? Not because you did anything, but because you are something. That's the first reason we're misunderstood. Our frequency disrupts the unconscious patterns around us. People don't understand you because you interrupt their sleepwalking. And this is where it gets real. We're not dark because we're evil or negative. We're dark because we operate in the shadows of truth, the places most people fear to enter. We are mirrors, and most people don't want to see what they really are. So they flinch. They attack. They label us as cold, distant, intense, or even dangerous. But in reality, we're holding space for what no one else has the courage to face. And isn't that the ultimate act of love?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
What if I told you that you were designed to be misunderstood? That your soul signed up for this? You didn't come here to fit in. You came here to awaken the sleeping. But awakening someone is not a gentle act. It's a thunderclap. It's a fire that burns away illusions. And not everyone wants to be awakened. That's the second reason we're misunderstood, because our presence initiates transformation, and transformation begins with destruction. Have you ever noticed how people project their fears onto you? You walk with integrity, but they call you arrogant. You speak truthfully, but they call you harsh. You protect your energy, and they say you're antisocial. You detach from drama, and suddenly you're too intense or emotionally unavailable. But what if that's the cost of clarity? What if your calm is mistaken for coldness because they don't know peace? What if your depth feels like danger because they're drowning in the shallow? There is a sacred loneliness in being a dark chosen one, a kind of divine exile. Because the third reason we're misunderstood is our solitude. We don't crave attention. We crave truth, and truth is a lonely path. You'll find yourself walking alone not because you're unlovable, but because you refuse to be fake. In a world that celebrates masks, authenticity is seen as rebellion. So we become rebels of the soul, warriors of the unseen, lovers of the void. But here's the twist. Our solitude is not a curse. It's a sacred training ground. In the silence, we hear what others miss. In the dark, we find the light. No one talks about the one that doesn't blind but illuminates from within. Have you ever been in so much silence that you could hear the language of the universe? The whispers of your ancestors? The voice of your higher self? That is the gift hidden in isolation. That is where power is born. Let me ask you something deep. When was the last time you felt truly seen? Not for your looks, your talents, or your achievements, but for your spirit. If you can't remember, that's not your fault. It's because most people don't have the eyes to see who you are. And that's the fourth reason we're misunderstood. We are invisible to the unawakened. They see your body, but not your essence. They hear your words, but not your vibration. They feel your power, but interpret it as threat. We are not here to be seen. We are here to see. We don't crave validation. We crave vision. And with that vision comes a responsibility so heavy it can break your back if you're not ready. We see patterns in people before they see them in themselves. We sense deception without proof. We feel energy shifts before the words are spoken. And the world calls this paranoia or overthinking, but in truth, it's spiritual intelligence. It's the ancient technology of the soul. And yet, because we see so deeply, we often feel like aliens. Have you ever sat in a room full of people and felt completely alone? Not because you're shy, but because no one's talking about anything real? That's the curse of the dark vision. You see through the surface. You can't pretend. You can't unsee. And so you smile when you're supposed to, and you nod when expected. But inside, you're watching the whole theater burn down, knowing no one else even smells the smoke. The fifth reason we're misunderstood is because we carry karma, not just our own, but collective karma. We are the soul recyclers, the ones who transmute pain into wisdom, suffering into power, and chaos into clarity. And this alchemy doesn't make us popular. It makes us targets, because when you walk with that kind of energy, you stir up all the suppressed shadows in others. They don't know why they don't like you. They just know something in you triggers something in them. But here's the secret they don't teach you in school or churches. Your pain is not a punishment. It's a portal. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every season of loss, it was breaking you open so the divine could pour through. You were never meant to be normal. You were meant to be real. And realness is a rare currency in this false economy of souls. So yes, they'll misunderstand you. They'll exile you. But that exile is your initiation. Do you remember the moment you realized you were different? Not better, not worse, just other. That moment when the illusions cracked and you felt the weight of something bigger than you. That was your spiritual birth. And like all births, it came with pain. But from that pain came purpose. You were not born to follow. You were born to lead, but from the shadows. Not with ego, but with essence. Not with noise, but with knowing. The sixth and final reason we're misunderstood is because we don't belong to any one timeline. We are time travelers of the soul. We carry ancient wisdom in a modern world. We speak truths that feel like riddles. We live ahead of our time, while healing wounds from lifetimes past. And that makes us incomprehensible to those who only live in the now. They mock what they don't understand. But we're not here for their approval. We're here for the mission. And that mission is not glamorous. It's gritty. It's lonely. It's filled with nights where you cry without knowing why, and mornings where you rise without knowing how. But still, you rise. Because something in you won't let you quit. Something ancient. Something divine. Something unbreakable. And that's what makes you a dark chosen one, not your pain, but your ability to alchemize that pain into power. So now I ask you, what are you going to do with this power? Keep hiding it? Keep dimming it so others feel comfortable? Or are you ready to step fully into who you are knowing that not everyone will understand, but the right ones will remember. This is your time, not to fit in but to ignite, not to be accepted but to awaken. And yes, it will be hard, but it will also be holy. And that's the paradox. We're misunderstood because we carry the medicine that scares people. But we're also the ones who plant seeds of awakening just by existing. You don't have to convince anyone to just be. Just exist, and your vibration will do the work. That's how powerful you are. That's how necessary you are. Let's go deeper now, because the surface won't hold us anymore. Once you've awakened to the reality that you are a dark chosen one, there's no going back. The veil has been lifted. Every conversation, every relationship, every moment begins to feel like a test, a message, or a mirror. And you start to realize that your very existence is a spiritual curriculum for you and for those around you. But the tests aren't always obvious. They come wrapped in silence, rejection, and the kind of loneliness that doesn't show on your face but bleeds in your soul. Have you noticed how life seems to demand more from you than from others? How your lessons come faster, harder, deeper? That's not punishment. That's preparation. You're not being broken, you're being built. You're not being rejected, you're being redirected. You are the forge, and your life is the fire. And sometimes, that fire burns everything you thought you were, just to reveal who you truly are underneath the ash. There's a sacred violence in transformation. The ego doesn't die quietly. It screams, it clings, it bargains. But you, dark chosen one, you were never meant to live in the ego. You were meant to die to it and rise from it. That's why people don't understand you. You're already living in a state they haven't reached yet. You're already operating on a frequency that disrupts their illusions. And in a world addicted to comfort, you are the discomfort that births change. Here's a hard truth that most won't tell you. Not everyone can go where you're going. And that's okay. The path of the dark chosen one is not wide. It's narrow, steep, and filled with shadows. You'll lose people. You'll lose versions of yourself. But what you'll gain is priceless. You'll gain your soul, your clarity, your connection to the divine, and no one can take that from you. But let's talk about the pain. Because you felt it, haven't you? That aches that hides behind your eyes. That tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. That longing that no amount of love from others can fill. That's the cost of carrying light in a dark world. That's the echo of lifetimes where you were burned for your truth, silenced for your voice, exiled for your wisdom. And yet, here you are again, still rising, still remembering. Most people misunderstand the dark chosen ones because they confuse our silence for weakness. But silence is our power. In the silence, we listen to the stars. In the silence, we remember who we were before the world told us who to be. In the silence, we gather the fragments of our spirit and reassemble them into a weapon of light. And when we finally speak, our words don't just land, they pierce, because they come from the soul, not the script. Have you ever felt like you're living in two worlds at once? One where you go through the motions, smile at the right times, nod when expected. And another where you're in constant communion with something higher, something older, something that vibrates beyond language. That's because you are. You're a bridge between the seen and unseen. You were born to channel codes from the divine, to translate frequencies into form. That's why small talk exhausts you. That's why fake people drain you. That's why you crave silence more than noise. And yet, people don't get it. They think you're antisocial. They think you're intense. But what they don't see is that your energy is sacred. You don't give it freely because it's not meant for everyone. You don't engage in meaningless connections because your soul remembers what it's like to live on purpose. And people who live without purpose will always misunderstand those who do. They'll call your boundaries walls. They'll call your discernment judgment. But deep down, they feel your power, and that terrifies them. The more you awaken, the more you realize that being misunderstood is part of the contract. You didn't come here to be liked. You came here to be true. And truth is not always popular. Truth is not always comfortable. Truth doesn't always look like love, but it is the highest form of it. Because when you tell the truth, even when your voice shakes, you liberate not just yourself, but everyone who hears it. Let me ask you, are you still trying to be understood by people who were never meant to understand you? Are you still shrinking to fit into spaces that can't hold your soul? Are you still dimming your light so others don't feel insecure? If so, stop. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. Because every time you betray your truth to be accepted, you abandon the very essence that makes you divine. And the world doesn't need a watered-down version of you. It needs the full, raw, unapologetic expression of your soul. And here's something wild. The more you step into your truth, the more magnetic you become. Not to the masses, but to those who see. Your tribe is not large, but it's real. And when you find them, it feels like home, like exhale, like finally. But you won't find them if you're pretending to be someone else. You won't find them if you're still wearing masks. You find them when you stand naked in your truth, scars and all, and say, "This is who I am. Take it or leave it." There's a reason the dark chosen ones are often artists, mystics, rebels, or healers. We move between realms. We translate pain into poetry, suffering into song. We turn trauma into teachings, because we don't just survive, we alchemize. That's our gift, and that gift is not always recognized. Sometimes it's feared. Sometimes it's mocked, but it's never truly ignored, because even in silence, our presence speaks. We are not here to fix everyone. That's a trap. We are not saviors. We are reminders. Reminders of what's possible when you stop pretending. Reminders of what's sacred when you stop chasing the superficial. Reminders of the divine that lives inside every soul. And yes, people will misunderstand that. They'll project their wounds onto you. They'll try to make you smaller. But remember, their reaction is not your responsibility. Your only job is to stay rooted in your essence. Have you noticed how the more you heal, the more isolated you sometimes feel? That's because healing raises your frequency, and not everyone can breathe at that altitude. But don't lower yourself to be understood. Don't descend just to be seen. Instead, trust that those meant for you will rise. Trust that your light will activate their memory. And when they meet you at that higher place, there will be no confusion, only recognition. You are not here by accident. You didn't stumble into this life. Your soul chose this path. You knew it would be hard. You knew it would be lonely. You knew you'd be misunderstood. But you also knew that you could handle it, that you had to handle it. Because your mission is bigger than your comfort. Your purpose is greater than your pain. And your legacy is being written in the silence where no one claps, but the universe listens. So what's next? You've remembered who you are. You've accepted the misunderstanding. Now it's time to embody, not just in moments of solitude, but in the world, in your relationships, in your work, in your service. Show up as the soul you came here to be. Speak truth, even when your voice shakes. Set boundaries, even when it feels scary. Walk away from what drains you. Run toward what expands you. Live as if your soul is on fire, because it is. And when they look at you with confusion, with judgment, with fear, smile. Not with arrogance, but with knowing. Knowing that being misunderstood is proof that you're doing it right. That you're not blending in. That you're not asleep. That you're alive and awake in a world that would rather you stay numb. You are the storm and the silence, the fire and the water, the shadow and the light. You are the paradox that reminds the world that divinity is not one thing, it's everything. And when you embrace that, you become unstoppable. Not because you overpower others, but because you no longer need to. You've already won, not in the way the world measures success, but in the way the soul does. You've remembered, you've awakened, and now you're choosing to live that truth, no matter the cost. So I ask you again, are you ready to stop hiding? Are you ready to stop apologizing for your depth? Are you ready to stop trying to be understood by those who've never even met themselves? Because the moment you say yes, the world changes. Now that you've arrived here, I want you to feel this moment, not just hear it. There's a sacred current in the air when someone steps into the fullness of their truth. You've walked through the fire of rejection, the depths of isolation, and the storm of misunderstanding. But you're still here. You're breathing. You're awakening. You didn't come this far to pretend you're asleep. You came to rise, not quietly, but with a knowing so profound it shakes the foundations of illusion. Let's talk about power now. Not the loud, hungry kind that needs validation, but the quiet, anchored power that dark, chosen ones carry. The kind that doesn't ask for permission. The kind that radiates from your being even when you say nothing. That kind of power unnerves people. They sense it before you even speak. And because they can't define it, they try to contain it. But you are not here to be contained. You are here to expand. Have you ever walked away from a conversation knowing you didn't say what they wanted to hear, but you said what their soul needed? That is your medicine, and not all medicine tastes sweet. Some people will spit it out. Some will resent you for holding up the mirror. But deep down, something in them shifts. Something old starts to unravel. That's the paradox of being misunderstood. You're often changing lives in ways they'll never admit. It's not your job to be palatable. It's your job to be piercing. Not to wound, but to awaken. And in a world that fears awakening, you will be feared. But that fear isn't about you. It's the fear of the death of falsehood. The ego trembles in the presence of truth, but the soul remembers. The soul always remembers, and your presence wakes up that memory. People will call you intense because you don't do shallow. They'll say you're too much because you refuse to be small. But what they're really saying is, I'm not ready for this level of realness. And that's okay. You're not here to push. You're here to be. And in your being, you activate what lies dormant in others. That's the real work. Not preaching. Not proving. Just being so fully, so unapologetically yourself that others remember how to return to themselves. Have you noticed how your path doesn't make sense to others? How your decisions seem irrational to those who live by logic alone? That's because you're not guided by the mind. You're guided by something older, deeper, your intuition, your knowing, your higher self. And that guidance doesn't always lead to comfort. It leads to alignment. And alignment often requires dismantling everything you thought you were. You've probably felt the pull to walk away from things that once felt safe: jobs, relationships, beliefs, identities. Not because you're unstable, but because your soul refuses to settle for anything less than truth. And that kind of evolution looks like chaos to those still clinging to the illusion of stability. They'll say you're lost. They'll say you're confused. But you're not. You're free. Freedom is misunderstood by those who live in cages. That's why they mock it. That's why they fear it. But freedom is your native state. And every step you take in the direction of your soul is a rebellion against the systems that benefit from your silence. You were not born to be quiet. You were born to be a frequency that disrupts the slumber of the world. Let me ask you something that goes beyond the mind. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to be understood at all? If you fully accepted that not everyone will get you, and that's not only okay, it's divine. What kind of freedom would that unlock? What kind of love would you give yourself if you stopped needing anyone else to validate your path? We've been taught to measure our worth through reflection, what others think, say, or feel about us. But being a dark chosen one means walking without mirrors. It means trusting your inner compass even when it points in the opposite direction of the crowd. It means knowing your light will disturb the darkness in others and choosing to shine anyway. You were not made for mediocrity. You were sculpted through lifetimes for remembering. And every wound you've endured was a chisel, carving away the false, revealing the sacred. That's why your pain feels ancient. It's not just yours. It's ancestral. It's collective. You are the one chosen to transmute it to end cycles, to bring light to what's been hidden for generations. But don't let that burden you, let it empower you. Because in every moment you choose truth over comfort, you're healing more than just yourself. You're healing your bloodline. You're healing the collective unconscious. You're sending ripples through the matrix of reality. That's the magnitude of your existence. That's the weight of your incarnation. And yet you're human. You get tired. You get hurt. You want to be held, seen, understood. That's not weakness. That's honesty. You don't have to be a statue. You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to grieve the parts of you that had to die for you to become who you are now. You're allowed to miss the innocence that was lost when your eyes opened to the truth. But don't stay in that grief. Use it. Let it soften you without breaking you. Let it be the proof that even in your darkest moments, you kept going. That even when love felt like a foreign language, you still chose to speak it. That even when you were drowning in silence, you still listened for the voice of the divine. You are not alone. There are others like you walking quietly through the world, misunderstood, mislabeled, misjudged, but connected through the unseen. And when you meet them, you'll know, not through words, but through resonance, like a tuning fork vibrating in recognition, like a long-lost song returning to your bones. That's why you must keep going, not just for you, but for them, for those still asleep, for those still wearing masks, for those who haven't heard the call yet. You are the voice that says, wake up. You are the whisper that says, there's more. You are the presence that says, I see you, even when no one else does. And here's the wildest part. The more misunderstood you are by the world, the more you are in alignment with your soul. Because your soul didn't come here to be ordinary. It came to remember, to rebel, to radiate. And when you do that without apology, you become a force that realigns everything around you. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to defend your depth. You don't need to explain your silence, your intensity, your solitude. That is your sanctuary. That is your strength. Let them misunderstand. Let them project. Let them talk. Because while they're busy trying to define you, you're out here becoming. Your existence is the revolution. Your breath is a prayer. Your truth is a temple. And every step you take on this path echoes into eternity. You are not just a person. You are a living transmission of divine frequency. You are the embodiment of a prophecy written in stardust and soul fire. So now, in this moment, I ask you one final question. Will you finally stop waiting for the world to understand you and start living like you understand yourself? Because when you do, everything changes. The confusion turns into clarity. The loneliness becomes solitude. The pain becomes power. And the misunderstanding becomes medicine. You stop being a victim of your difference and start being a vessel of your divinity.